America's power grid is running at about half capacity, and somehow we're still worried we won't have enough electricity. That sounds like a contradiction, but once you understand how the grid actually works, it makes complete sense. Here's the basic picture. The US has a lot of power generation: coal plants, gas plants, solar farms, wind turbines, nuclear reactors, and a huge web of transmission lines connecting all of it. But most of that infrastructure sits idle for a big chunk of the day. The grid is designed to handle peak demand. Think of a hot summer afternoon when everyone cranks the AC. For those few hours, you need every watt you can get, so the system gets built to handle that moment. The rest of the time, a lot of it just waits. That's what the 50% figure means. On average, across all hours and all regions, we're only using about half of what the grid can technically push. But averages don't keep the lights on during a heat wave, and they definitely don't help when a massive new source of demand shows up overnight. That's exactly what's happening right now. Data centers are multiplying fast. AI is a huge part of that. Training a large AI model takes an enormous amount of electricity. Running it, what's called inference, every time you ask it something, takes electricity too, and the scale of these operations is unlike anything the grid was designed for. A single large data center can draw as much power as a small city, and companies are building dozens of them. On top of that, the US is bringing manufacturing back home. Chip fabs, battery plants, electric vehicle factories. These are power-hungry operations, so demand is climbing from multiple directions at once. The obvious answer sounds simple: build more power plants and more transmission lines. And yes, that will need to happen, but here's the problem. Building a new power plant takes years. Permitting a major transmission line can take a decade. The demand is arriving now. The infrastructure can't keep up at that pace. So what else can we do? It turns out there's a lot of room to work with what we already have. One of the biggest opportunities is on the demand side. Right now, most electricity customers, homes, offices, factories, use power whenever they need it and pay a flat rate regardless of the time of day. But electricity isn't equally valuable at all hours. At 3 a.m., there's plenty to go around. At 6 p.m. on a summer evening, the system is strained. If we can shift some of that demand, charge electric vehicles overnight instead of at dinner time, run industrial equipment during off-peak hours, pre-cool buildings before the heat of the day, we spread the load more evenly. That means the existing infrastructure handles more total work without needing an upgrade. It's not glamorous, but it's fast and it's cheap compared to building new capacity. Data centers specifically have some flexibility here. Not all of their workloads are time-sensitive. Training a model doesn't have to happen at exactly noon. Some companies are already experimenting with shifting compute jobs to times when power is cheaper and more available. If that becomes standard practice, it takes real pressure off the grid. Another piece of this is the transmission network itself. The wires that carry power from where it's generated to where it's used. A lot of those lines are old, and they're rated conservatively, meaning they're officially limited to carrying less power than they physically could because the ratings were set based on worst-case conditions from decades ago. Modern monitoring technology can change that. If you put sensors on transmission lines and watch them in real time, you can see exactly how hot they're running, how much capacity is actually available in the moment. On a cool, windy day, a line rated for a certain load might safely carry significantly more. This approach is called dynamic line rating. It doesn't require building anything new. It just means using what's already there more intelligently. There's also the question of where power gets generated versus where it's needed. Wind is abundant in the middle of the country. Solar is strongest in the southwest, but the big population centers that need the most power are often on the coasts. Getting energy from where it's plentiful to where it's needed requires long-distance transmission. We don't have nearly enough of it. Improving that connection, even incrementally, unlocks a lot of stranded generation that's just sitting there, available but unable to reach customers. None of this is a silver bullet. The honest answer is that we need all of it. More generation, more transmission, smarter demand management, better use of existing infrastructure. The problem is that these solutions move at different speeds and face different political and regulatory hurdles. Building a new solar farm is relatively quick. Connecting it to the grid through a new transmission line is not. A project can get stuck in the interconnection queue, the line of projects waiting to be approved and connected, for 5 years or more. That's a real bottleneck that's been slowing down clean energy deployment for a while now. Regulators are starting to pay attention to this. There's been some movement toward reforming the interconnection process to speed things up, but it's slow going in a system that involves multiple federal agencies, state regulators, and dozens of private utilities, all with different interests. What makes this moment different from past energy crunches is the speed of the demand increase. AI infrastructure is being built at a pace that's genuinely hard to plan around. Utilities are used to forecasting demand growth in small, predictable increments. A hyperscale data center campus showing up and asking for several hundred megawatts with a 2-year timeline breaks those planning models. Some grid operators are already sounding the alarm. They're warning that in certain regions, demand could outstrip reliable supply within the next few years if things don't change. That doesn't mean rolling blackouts are inevitable. But it does mean the decisions made in the next 2 or 3 years matter a lot. The grid isn't broken. It's just being asked to do something it wasn't designed for, on a timeline nobody planned for. The good news is that a lot of the solutions already exist.